Now we're going to work through a Christmas carol called Carol of the Bells. It's really a beautiful tune. It's going to allow us to explore some interesting things on the piano. With me to work through the tune is my friend David Tolley. Hi, David.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And this is really kind of a fun one, I think, because we're going to get to explore some different, areas of the piano that are going to kind of give some, it's almost like sound effects, I guess,
right,
and they're going to apply to the title of the tune and whatnot. So, is this a tune that you get requested when you go out and do Christmas gigs?
Around Christmas time, I find myself playing it a lot because it sets the atmosphere for a nice Christmas party.
Sure. Sure. It's funny when you do, I think, you go out and you work Christmas gigs, you've got like this list, and it's not 100 tunes long, it's 15 or 20 long, so you really got to kind of, I think, do some interesting arrangements. And anyway, let's dig into this one. If you want to play the first couple measures so we get the tune in everyone's ear. Sure. Yeah, it's just, you instantly know what we're talking about there. Okay. Great. Well, let's take this down to its barest bones like we tend to do.
Okay.
Say we've got a Christmas fake book and we open the darn thing up and we find this tune in lead sheet format. We're just going to have a single note melody line with the chord symbols up above it. So let's dig in there. What is just the melody line by itself. Okay, what key are we doing this one in?
G minor.
G minor, okay, that's fine. So we're starting it on, okay.
Then it goes up. Then.
Okay, now that's a little bit more, that's really just playing up a scale there, I guess, pretty much, isn't it? So it's starting on a D. You want to do that slower for us, just so we can, somebody's really, okay. This is going to sound so elementary to you, because you're a good piano player that way, but could you explain or just show again how you did that thumb under thing?
Oh, okay.
I know that's really a simple thing and you do it so often, but sometimes we'll get questions and people say, what do you do when you have a melody line that runs more than 5 notes? How do you decide to jump and when to do it? And that's a very common way to accomplish it, right?
Right. I just, one of the things is you just tuck your thumb underneath, and as you go from one key, usually you do like 3 notes or 4, and after the third, I tuck this under, so this is like pivoting under, and then hit the next, then slide my hand up. So it's
And come back down and do it the other direction so we can see this. Yeah, it's just so smooth, and when you see piano players doing that, sometimes I think, people that aren't aware of that little technique, if you even want to call it that, but that is really the way you can accomplish getting all the way up and down a piano without constantly, doing this thing, and that's the smooth way to accomplish that. So, all right, so there's the melody line through the first kind of 4 or 5 measures, whatever that was. Let's do the chords now. What chord symbols would we see above that melody line?
This would be probably an exercise in slashes, where you have the different changing bass, because it's basically a G minor. It's basically a G minor chord and a D chord. But the bass changes, so it's now an F in the bass.
Now, how would you see that? How would you see that notated in chord symbol notation? How do they do that?
You'd see a G minor, and then you'd have a slash. And to the right of it, you'd have the first, and then next would be a slash with an F. And then a G minor with a slash.
So the chord stays the same.
Chord stays the same.
The chord symbol stayed the same, but then there's a slash, and whatever's to the right of the slash
is in the bass.
Is the bass note.
Right.
So that to the right of the slash isn't another chord to play, it's a single note to play.
Right.
Okay. That's confusing sometimes when people haven't seen that chord symbol notation, that they'll see they always get to, what is that note, how does that mean? How do you play 2 chords at once? They'll say G minor slash F. They say, well, how do you play both chords? And the idea is you don't. G minor is the chord. What's to the right of the slash is the single note you play in the bass. Okay, great. Just make sure we're straight with that. So doing that, so you're sticking on that G minor chord the whole time, then you said the bass note just keeps walking down.
And I think the composer who wrote it thought that was a very strong melody, in the bass, and he kept that going while he changed the melody in the right hand, and then he went up.
So that's just kind of this continuing thematic thing that just ba-da-da-da, and then we're hearing different melodic things on top of that. Now, do you tend to play this with the chords or just playing that single note walk down?
You mentioned about the repertoire of Christmas music being kind of shrunk. This is a great song to improvise on.
Great.
And so I change it every time. I might do it with the chord and keep these 2 notes playing, and then just change my bottom note, or sometimes I just do the bass. Or
what you're doing, I know it looks so complicated to see you do it at that speed, but what you were doing there was just taking notes out of a G minor chord, right?
Exactly.
And doing an arpeggio, or you're just
Right.
splitting them up and playing them melodically. Okay.
And when I improvise an arrangement on this, it's really, I have all these choices of what I want to do with that bass line, and if I want to just put it down in octaves,
Nice big
like that,
climax part of the tune, you'll be playing up like crazy there. Okay.
as well as I can turn it into a little, like a Mozart little arpeggio.
Well, that's pretty.
And it's
I'm hearing you keeping your pedal down through that thing.
Right,
You're getting that kind of ethereal,
Right.
misty sound, if you will, going through the whole thing. That's nice that you can do. So you're, at different times you're going to be going through different sections of the tune and just changing that up to just give yourself your arrangement, whatever it's going to
An
end up
arrangement.
being. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about different things you can do with the melody line in this
Okay.
one. Same type of thing. What can we do to switch things up and make it sound a little more interesting than just that main line?
Well, a lot of times, if I'm going to play a piece, I keep it simple at the beginning so it kind of registers to whoever's listening.
Okay.
Ah, this is the melody. I know this song.
Sure.
And then I might develop it. I might then take it up an octave, and then I might do it in octaves. Or you can do it in thirds,
Okay.
Just add a bottom note to that, and then...
That's great.
And-
Yeah, you hear that. It's funny when you do some of these things. You're like, oh yeah, I've heard that one before.
Right.
Oh yeah, I've heard that arrangement before.
Right. And I think a lot of times is with that melody, if I get that little, what I call ostinato going, that repeating bass, I start to develop the melody and just improvise.
Now you're just playing over what scale? You're playing over.
A G minor scale.
So you're doing. Now, okay, do that slowly for us, because this is somebody will really do this. This is a fast kind of peek into the world of improvisation. So starting on a G, you just have a B flat and an E flat.
Right,
And other than that, it's okay. That's great. That is a helpful thing, I think, sometimes to, instead of going through typical jazz tunes that are going through 2-5-1s or whatever, where
Right.
you're having to the scales are changing every measure. In this case, you've got kind of a long period to just noodle around on that same scale, and the trick being any one of those notes is going to sound okay.
It sound
So,
okay.
yeah.
It's like I set up the atmosphere with this, and then I can
Any one of those notes you want to out of there. Now I hear you, that's a little trick we've seen before. It's playing the octaves, but instead of playing them perfectly together, I notice you're playing the bottom one first.
Right.
Bottom, and that's what, kind of a bell?
almost like a bell, like a handbell
Yeah.
effect, where there might be two bells going ta-ding,
Yeah. Well, that's a nice thing, and that also needs to have the pedal held down while you're doing
Right.
it, I assume, to go through those things. Do me a favor, just because I think I'd really love to focus on it a little bit more. It's such a nice carrot to dangle for our viewers, this improvisation thing. If you can just play the solid chord, like a G
Okay.
minor chord, instead
Okay.
of doing that ostinato thing,
Right.
just hold a chord down and noodle a little bit
Okay.
on that G minor
Okay.
scale. And the trick being,
And you want me to change the bass?
sure,
too?
you can do that too. And as you keep doing this, I'll just mention, so the trick is you're just inventing a melody using the notes of that G minor scale, and no matter where you are in that progression, it just keeps sounding nice. This is really, yeah. Now you're just showing off. That's right. Now, what if you ever, I'm really reaching now, but I was thinking about improvisation. How would you, if you're going to try to do this and open it up and start swinging it somehow? in the middle? How could you do that with the same, like, let's stick to that same pattern where you're on the
Okay.
G and moving down. What would you do to kind of make something sound swinging? Is it like comping or? You're still primarily focusing on that same scale.
Right.
It's just that instead of doing straight eighths and you were rhythmically it was swinging.
Right, rhythmically I was swinging it.
But harmonica, and you were doing some blues licks too.
Couple little blues notes in there.
But the primary difference being it's just the rhythmic function that you were going do ba do ba do ba do ba instead of da 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 da.
Right, right.
So that's another I think an interesting thing to say. Understand that you can take the base of knowledge once you learn a tune like this, and use what you already have to really stretch out in some different areas pretty easily.
Right,
so
right.
Good stuff that way. One last thought before we listen to you play the tune. How about playing like both hands up high too?
Okay.
What's the title of the tune, right?
Carol of the Bells.
Carol of the Bells. How do we accomplish this very carillon sounding thing? So just keeping your pedal down, playing everything up in that higher register, and that really just gives us kind of
And I'm picking
chimes.
notes in the scale at random. Anything in that thing, and I grab some notes, and it's a great way to experiment with things that might sound like bells, like in Notre Dame or something.
Yeah. So and you're still sticking to the notes in that G minor scale.
In the G minor scale.
That's great. Okay, cool. And that might be, from a composition standpoint, something you could throw in there somewhere to just kind of give it a little, a little theatrical effect of one way or the other. So, all right. Well, listen. Let's try to, listen to you do this and incorporate this a little bit. If you'd like to break out and improvise a little bit on it,
sure,
that would be wonderful too. And we'll listen for the, the melody that we all know, and then watch how you kind of turn it into a full piece of music.
Okay.
Great.
I'll just improvise on some of the things we just talked about.
Perfect. Well, that was really nice.
Thank you.
Nice work, David.